Sumeru's been out for a few weeks now, and besides a beautiful new region and land to explore and a nice new refreshing Archon quest, we've got a...
Use the bathroom and flush your anxiety dookie away.
Why?
People always say they feel a sense of relief after they take a doo-doo.
We've got a brand new element in the game, Dendro. So in this vid, guys, I want to go over everything there is to know about the new Dendro element. I'm talking all the elemental reactions, how elemental mastery works with it, elemental resonance, all that good stuff. And if any term in this video doesn't make sense to you, such as transformative, amp, or ICDs, when it comes to reactions, I've got an everything there is to know about the elemental system in Genshin guide. I'll leave it in the description. I think it's one of the best guides on the channel, so I'd love it if you guys checked it out. But lads, let's get into it. First off, I want to say that every single Dendro reaction acts as a transformative reaction. What that means is that the character who triggers the elemental reaction, their elemental level is the one that's going to be important to boost up the damage. Elemental level is just an umbrella term of all the stats that raise the power of elemental reactions, such as their elemental mastery and their character level. For example, if I use Kokomi's jellyfish and then use Dendro main character's skill, the Dendro main character's elemental mastery and character level is what is going to boost that bloom damage. If I did the opposite, if I used Lumine's skill into Kokomi's jellyfish, Kokomi's elemental mastery and level would boost the damage. We'll get this out of the way here. Unfortunately, Dendro has no reactions at all with Geo, Anemo, and Cryo. Since we just talked about it, let's go over Bloom. When Hydro meets Dendro or vice versa, the Bloom reaction occurs, and it places a small little Dendro core on the ground that will explode, doing damage to everything around it after 6 seconds. But keep in mind, an enemy can only be hit by 2 Bloom reactions at the same time. So if you were somehow able to get up 5 little Dendro cores all at the exact same time, when they all explode, a single enemy is only going to take 2 instances of Bloom damage. So unfortunately, not that high. And oddly enough, your own character can get hit by the Bloom reaction and take damage, but you only take like 5% of the maximum damage. It really is like no damage at all, but it is pretty weird that they added this. Now here's where things get interesting. The Dendro cores actually have a specific reaction with both Pyro and Electro. So if you were to use a Pyro skill on a Dendro core, it would cause Burgeon, which is going to immediately explode the core. You don't have to wait for the time limit of Bloom, and it's actually going to do increased damage. It's going to do 50% more damage than the Bloom reaction. And of course, you're still going to take that 5% explosion damage. Now, if you hit the Dendro core with an Electro attack, it is going to cause the reaction of Hyperbloom. The core is going to turn into a little homing missile and fly at the nearest enemy and explode. It does the same amount of damage as Burgeon, so 50% more than Bloom, but it does not have a big AoE at all. It is pretty much like a single target missile. But don't fret on that. Hyperbloom is a great reaction. It does increase damage, and it is really good against those big single target bosses that you're going to face in the Abyss, because you don't need an AoE explosion. For both Burgeon and Hyperbloom, the elemental level of the Pyro or Electro character that activates the seed is the one that matters. So it doesn't matter who makes the seed in what direction, it just matters on the Pyro or Electro character's elemental mastery and level. So we just went over Bloom and all of its specific reactions, and honestly that covers a big chunk of the Dendro reactions. All right, real quick, catalyze. Catalyze is dumb. I don't know why they made this word. It pretty much is the umbrella term for everything involving Electro and Dendro. It is not an actual reaction. The actual reaction of Dendro and Electro is called Quicken. Quicken may seem confusing at first, but don't worry guys, I'm going to make it as easy to understand as possible. First of all, the order does not matter at all with Quicken. Dendro then Electro, or Electro then Dendro, doesn't matter at all. Causing the Quicken reaction does not do any damage at all, but it gives the enemy the Quicken aura for a set amount of time. It's almost like a status condition in Pokemon. They are going to be affected by Quicken. Now this aura makes your Dendro and Electro attacks against that target do increased damage, plain and simple. The aura is not consumed when you hit it with an Electro or Dendro attack either. The Quicken aura lasts as long as it lasts, depending on how strong the attack you used, and then every single Dendro Electro attack you hit on them is just going to do more damage. When your Electro attack hits an enemy with the Quicken aura, it is going to be an Aggravate reaction. And when a Dendro skill hits somebody who's affected by Quicken, it's going to be a Spread reaction. Spread does slightly more damage than Aggravate, but it's pretty negligible and it shouldn't change how you're going to play your team comps at all, really. So even if that was confusing still, you could literally just think Electro plus Dendro spam, Unga Bunga, big damage, I'm good at the game now. And I think you're good. This is why Aggravate has somewhat been kind of the star child of the new Dendro reactions, because it really is just straight up brain dead. It's not hard to do at all. You just spam your attacks and you just start doing a lot of damage. It really did buff the Electro element. And Electro was probably the weakest element before Sumeru. Kind of an argument between that and Geo, but it's a nice buff for Electro. I think they deserved it. And finally, Pyro. So besides Burgeon, which we learned about in the Bloom section, Pyro and Dendro have a specific reaction called Burning, which is just a little damage over time ticking burning effect on the enemy. Yeah, that's it. It's like when we're standing in grass on fire, but a little better, I guess. The damage is all right, but I mean, come on, we want to be doing like big, huge damage fast. We don't want to be sitting there slowly waiting for the enemy to die, right? So unless we get some cracked burning reaction character in the future, I'd say burning right now is kind of a meme reaction. We shouldn't be building teams around the burning reaction, I would say. One thing to note about burning is that it appears as an aura, and the Pyro slowly burns away the Dendro element from the enemy. If the Dendro aura is consumed, the burning reaction will end. So you gotta kind of continuously feed the fire more Dendro to keep it lit. But the thing is I always keep it lit, so you know what I'm saying. Finally, Dendro's Elemental Resonance. If you have 2 or more Dendro characters in your party, you are going to get 50 Elemental Mastery and these 2 bonus effects. After triggering a Burning, Quicken, or Bloom, all party members will get 30 Elemental Mastery for 6 seconds. And after triggering Aggravate, Spread, Hyperbloom, or Burgeon, all party members will get 20 Elemental Mastery for 6 seconds. They stack on top of each other and they both have their own individual timer. Long story short, lots of Elemental Mastery boosts for the team, so long as you are creating a lot of Dendro reactions. As y'all can see, the Dendro element is all about causing elemental reactions in combat. It is extremely Elemental Mastery centric. Now that the basics are out of the way, we've got some cool things to note. Both Thundering Fury and Crimson Witch have been updated to include Burgeon, Burning, Hyperbloom, and Aggravate in the reactions that they boost the power of, so that's cool. Vermilion Hereafter is an artifact set that boosts your attack depending on how many times you've taken separate instances of damage. And those little bloom explosions do very little damage, but they are doing damage to your character, so they can actually proc the Vermilion Hereafter set pretty frequently. Now, it's too early to tell if this is actually going to be like meta relevant or good with the bloom reaction, but it's something fun to think about. Also, without getting too confusing, applying Hydro to Dendro will consume less Dendro aura than vice versa. And what do I mean by this? I'm pretty much saying that in optimal circumstances, you could get 2 bloom cores off of a single Dendro skill, where the opposite of getting 2 cores off of a single Hydro skill isn't usually possible. So just think Dendro first, Hydro second if you want to get more blooms. A few more quick advanced facts. If Burning is on an enemy, it will act as a Pyro aura when hit with another element. And when an enemy is quickened, it will act as a Dendro aura with other elements. And finally, Cryo and Dendro can somewhat coexist on the enemy at the same time. So sometimes you can create both a Cryo and Dendro reaction simultaneously. All right, guys, we got the nerd facts out of the way. Let's go over some really basic and strong team comps that we can use with Dendro. Quicken is the most fail-safe and brain-dead reaction in my opinion, so the team comps can be extremely flexible with what characters you can have. I definitely recommend Fischl if you have her on any Quicken comp. It is a beaten dead horse right now about how good Fischl is, but pretty much her A4 Ascension skill makes her bonkers at creating aggravate reactions. Every single Oz attack will aggravate. It does not have a ICD. So running double Electro, any of the Dendro characters, and a filler slot works wonders. You could run Animo for Viridescent Venomous Shred on Electro. You can run Zhongli, since Geo is neutral and provides a big shield, and a second Dendro for even more damage output, and the Dendro Resonant. Triple Electro isn't even like a troll strat either, especially if you've got like role consolidation in characters like Kuki and Kujosara. Quicken stuff is very flexible and very, very strong. So Bloom just alone by itself isn't seen as that strong or super worth it, but if you'd like, there are some fridge comps going around that are actually really fun and cool. Dendro, double Hydro characters, and a Cryo character. Since Cryo and Dendro can exist at the same time, you can create blooms while keeping the enemy frozen in place to, of course, get hit by the bloom explosions and not walk away from them. It's not a bad team by any means, it's just not quite as broken as like Aggravate stuff. So if you want to focus more on a Hyperbloom team comp of just spamming a myriad of Electro, Hydro, and Dendro, it is going to create a ton of elemental reactions flying all over the place. Fischl actually isn't really the best character for these comps since Oz is not usually going to focus his attacks on the Dendro cores, so you're not going to activate as much Hyperbloom as you'd like. Kuki actually fits great into these comps as she provides off-field Electro application, heals, and she actually scales with Elemental Mastery in her kit. Thank you, Hoyoverse, for making Kuki meta. I appreciate that. Just make sure if you're running Hyperbloom, you've got a really strong DPS character in some of the remaining slots. I'm talking things like Yelan, Child, Raiden Shogun, Xingqiu, Tainari, stuff like that. Raiden is fantastic on both Quicken and Hyperbloom comps since her off-field Electro activates in such a huge area, unlike Fischl's just single target little pew-pews. Kokomi is also pretty based on these team comps. She's constant off-the-field Hydro application and heals. It is pretty invaluable. Burgeon, while pretty darn fun, is hard to pull off and it may not exactly be worth the trouble, but it does utilize some less represented characters such as Toma, and it's a great team comp for the new Kale. For Burgeon to work, you've got to create cores, then hit them with Pyro. So we're going to want as much off-field elemental application as possible. That's where Toma comes in as a shielder who applies Pyro off-field as the Pyro applicator. Elemental Mastery Toma is real, and he can hurt you. Things like Xingqiu, Kale, or Dendro main character Toma, and then a filler like Bennett, Animo, Geo, etc. are going to be your go-to attempts at a Burgeon comp. Just be careful not to hit Dendro main character's burst with a Pyro skill before you hit it with a Hydro one. So homies, that's gonna do it for my complete Dendro Element guide. Let me know what team comps you guys are using the most and loving about Dendro right now. And also let me know what kind of Dendro characters you guys are looking for in the future. I'm really looking for a character that provides a Dendro shield or just a shield that is Dendro. I think that's gonna be pretty darn cracked. So guys, I'm sorry for the lack of videos lately. It's been one of the most stressful months of my entire life. I'm not even kidding, but there actually is a huge announcement coming near the end of the month. So guys, stay tuned for that. I appreciate every single one of you guys who watches my videos here on Genshin, dropping that like, the comment, and subscribing. It really does go a huge way in supporting the channel. And speaking of going the huge way, shout out to the patrons, Steven Gomez, Zick, and Poison Tongue Boy, and everybody else supporting your boy on Patreon. So for all you gamers out there, I appreciate you very, very much. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.